Shabbat Shalom, kids. Today I'm going to tell you about the relevantly what I am wearing program called, oy vey, today is not my day, Birthright Israel. Now, in case you didn't know, I'm a partial Jew. So my mom is Jewish, my dad is pretty much from a Catholic Protestant. So I am, according to Reform law, Jewish. But today I'm going to tell you about Birthright Israel, which, in case you didn't know, it's this program where if you are Jewish or if you're of Jewish descent, you can go in this program. This video is not going to talk about the political nature of the state of Israel. I don't think Israel is perfect. I think they've done some things that are not very good. I don't think the Palestinian side is perfect as well. The main aspect of the program is you get to go around the country of Israel. And you actually do go into some of the Palestinian territories in the West Bank for things such as you meet a Bedouin community who are very nomadic and they have a very fascinating way of life. It's changed a lot in the with globalization and different political changes, but definitely if you're interested, look up the Bedouin community. It is fascinating. So I got into the program because I went to my college. I go to Kalamazoo College in Michigan. I went to the Kalamazoo College Jewish organization called Hillel. One of my friends and we just were like, you know what, let's go. And I went there, and this woman named, I sound like such an asshole. I don't remember her name. Shelby. And Shelby is awesome. I don't think Shelby will see this because I have negative people watching this, but Shelby, if you see this, you're awesome. She told us about if anyone hasn't gone on Birthright and they want to go on a free trip to Israel, sign up here. And I just very impulsively, without really thinking, was like, okay, I have a month-long break. It's in the break. I might as well do it. So I signed up not expecting for it to even go through. I thought they're going to be, you're not Jewish enough. I did not have a bar mitzvah. I did grow up celebrating the holidays, but in a very secular way. And I've been to synagogue probably once a year at most. So Shelby was like, who wants to go to Israel? And I was like, oh, okay, Shabbat Shalom. I didn't actually say that, but I signed up, and she was awesome. She was so nice. She guided me through the whole process. And then they called me 2 weeks later, and they had a phone interview. They were like, are you Jewish? And I was like, well, my mom is. Like, what holidays do you know? And I said, the basics: Passover, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, those kind of essential holidays. And they asked what Judaism meant to me, and I told them I don't really have a bona fide religious belief. So I came back to Portland, where I live, for 2 weeks of break. I had a seizure. It was but that's a different thing. I don't have epilepsy, by the way. But also, if you do have epilepsy, I'm really sorry about that. Because having had seizures, it is not fun. It really isn't. Actually, okay, I'm completely getting off topic. And then I went to JFK and I met my group. And when I first met the group, I was like, oh my God, I don't know any of these people. A lot of them go to the same school. There's only me and this other guy from Kalamazoo College, but he's a football, he's the one Jewish football player. So, congratulations to him. So then, Lily, why are you barking? I promise, she's not deprived, she's not abused, she's been outside, she's been exercised. Just if a rat walked 10 miles that way, she would be mad at the rat and she'd bark to say hello. So I went to Israel, and the first day or so, I was jet-lagged. I didn't know anyone. I had no friends, and I talked to a few people, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be 2 weeks of me being miserable. I didn't think I liked anyone there. It just was a whole mess. Everyone was also a lot older than me, and I was like, fortunately, that really changed, and within a few days, I loved everyone. Even people I didn't like. There was one kid who was very, very, very obnoxious. He was such a bro, dude, what's up, homie? He didn't say homie. He's like, yeah, and then I beep that bitch, beep. Then even by the end of the trip, I loved him just because it's there's some Jewish thing or something. When you take a bunch of random Jews, bring them to Israel, bring them to the only Jewish majority country outside of Brooklyn, then you're just instantly there just was some magic there. And it was awesome because even people I didn't necessarily like on a personal level, it felt like a family where it was like, you have the crazy aunt or the crazy uncle, and you're just you grow to love them. And so the trip, although it wasn't like perfect, I had so much fun and I made so many great friends. And yes, I haven't seen any of them since, unfortunately. But besides that, it was such an amazing trip. It was seriously so awesome. It was I first of all, I've always wanted to go to Israel. And we didn't do a lot of like, we did some touristy things, but it wasn't like Israel wasn't a country that you can kind of go to. It's not like, Mexico, where you can go to Mexico and you can, lock yourself up in a resort and not speak a word of Spanish and, just go to the beach and hang out with other foreigners. Israel is not that type of place. So if you're going to visit Israel, you are, whether you like it or not, you're going to be exposed to this culture, which is so fascinating. It's like a blend of Middle Eastern culture and of Jewish culture. And also because Israel is a melting pot of Jews from the diaspora. So before Israel, and to this day, but much less so, there was a huge Jewish diaspora. Then the Holocaust came. That's another story. I hope you know about that. Yes, the Holocaust did happen. But basically, there were Jews all about the Middle East. They were in Iraq. They were in Syria. They were in Morocco. They were in Tunisia. They were all throughout the Arab world. They were all throughout the European world. Most of them, a huge percentage of them, were in Eastern Europe. That's the line I'm from, called Ashkenazi. But there also were large amounts of what we call Sephardic Jews, who are descendant from Jews from the Iberian Peninsula, and they are, throughout. They're in Turkey, they're in Northern Africa. Well, those are a different type of Jew, but they're in Spain. Well, not so much because of the Inquisition. I don't know my stuff exactly, but Sephardic Jews are basically more Mediterranean-looking Jews, and Ashkenazi Jews are more Eastern European Jews, and Ashkenazi Jews have like the stereotypical, Jewish look, and Sephardic Jews, notable ones are like Natalie Portman. That's the only one I know. But then there are Arab Jews, and so after Israel, created all the Arab countries didn't like Israel, so a lot of them kicked out the Jews, or they started harassing the Jews. So when you go to Israel, you have Jews who are immigrants from Russia, like because in the Soviet Union there's tons of Jews in Russia. But during the Soviet Union, they weren't really allowed to move to Israel. So after it fell, a bunch of Russian Jews came to Israel. So you have Russian Jews, you have Jews from Eastern Europe, you have French Jews. There's been a lot of Jews moving from France recently because of the rise of anti-Semitism there. There are American Jews. There are Jews from Latin America. I met Jews from all around the world who spoke French, who spoke Spanish, who spoke Arabic even. There's this amazing museum called the what was it called? I don't know, but I will find the name of the museum and I will put it in the link. And so you see like a synagogue from the Caribbean and a synagogue from Turkey. And it's so fascinating because they all have the core, things like the Torah, the Ark of the Torah, the Ark of the Covenant, I think, pointing towards Jerusalem. But then you see like the cultural influences that are imposed. So you can like have amazing, I don't know. No offense, I've never really had Russian food, but you can have amazing Russian food made with like traditional Jewish ways, like in a kosher way, or there's Arab Jews, especially in the city of what was it called? Tel Aviv, Haifa. There's a lot of Arab Jews. There's a lot of Arab Christians. There's a lot of Arab Jews, Arab Christians, and Arab Muslims. And so you see all these people speaking Arabic, and you don't really know who's Jewish, who's Christian, who's Muslim, and it kind of breaks the boundaries of it being the idea that, Arabs equal Muslim, Jews equal curly black hair Eastern European. So we went to the Lake of Galilee, which is where Jesus was preaching, and that was fascinating. We went to Tel Aviv, which is this cosmopolitan, very European, very, I wouldn't say European. But if any of you have been to Turkey, it's very similar to the city of Izmir, but very few people have been there. So I'm trying to think what the comparison would be. Kind of think like a Middle Eastern Miami in like a Jewish neighborhood type feel. And Tel Aviv is very cosmopolitan, so much more diverse than I thought. There are also black Jews from Africa. There's also just immigrants. A lot of people who aren't Jewish move to Israel, and it is harder to move to Israel if you're not Jewish, because kind of the purpose of Israel is to be a safe place for Jews and a very historically and sometimes currently anti-Semitic world. But there's tons of Ethiopians who live there. There's lots of people from sub-Saharan Africa, Asian people, Americans who aren't Jewish who just live there and work for the U.S. government. It's ironic because before I went to Israel, everyone was saying, it's not safe, it's not safe. I've never felt safer than there. And I know that there's been terrorism in Israel. I know that my experience doesn't reflect, living in, for example, the Gaza Strip or more dangerous parts of Israel. But in the areas I went to, which were pretty numerous, I went to Haifa, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, the West Bank, the north of Israel, the Golan Heights, the south down to, what's the name? There's a desert in southern Israel. I forgot the name. Southern Israel Desert is what we'll call it. And it felt very safe because there is a huge military presence. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I'm not going to get into saying, I think this is good, I think this is bad. But I will say this. I felt very safe. I know a ton of people might comment like, you're white, you're Jewish and like a country killing Palestinians, blah, 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 blah. And I acknowledge that. Like, I know my experience does not encapsulate the experience it might have been in Israel if I had been Arab or Muslim. I did see lots of Muslim people and Jewish people working together. I saw people at cafes who were Muslim and Jewish. And it's not like I was like going up to them and asking, so I could be wrong. But, typically when I see someone with a headscarf, and Islam is like the main religion in which women cover their hair. And it reminded me kind of a lot of the United States. And so it's not an exact parallel, but it is kind of similar in terms of a majority and a minority. And, the minority is not up to equality yet necessarily, but to give Israel credit, they have all the same, on paper, they have all the same rights. They all can vote. Arab Israelis can form their own political parties, which they have to great success. Arab Israelis can be elected to any office in Israel. There's yet to be a prime minister or president of Israel who is an Arab, but there have been numerous high-profile members of the Knesset, which is the Senate of Israel. The exception doesn't mean that it's like the whole thing. I said I wasn't going to get into the politics, but sorry, I digressed. So, anyway, tons of amazing places, so much history. The Dead Sea is phenomenal, although it was very, 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 very salty. Almost as salty as I am when I see your picture on Instagram without tagging me. Okay, that was like very cringeworthy, but I tried. My experience there for almost 2.5 weeks, I never felt unsafe. There's so much history. There's so much Christian history. There's so much Jewish history. There's so much Islamic history. There's so much. There's Druze, which is there's so many different. It's when you go there, if you ever have the opportunity, which I'm so fortunate that I didn't have to pay for this at all, and I kind of wish everyone could do this, but obviously that's not realistic. But there is something about being there where you understand the importance of this land. It was great. It was really amazing. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my own Jewish culture. I learned a lot about things I didn't know. So if you're Jewish, or if you really want to go, you can say you're Jewish. It's great. And I recommend you do it. And it was not very political. Of course, they weren't like Free Palestine, but when they taught us about the conflict, it was very impartial, which I thought was... So, out of review, I honestly give it 9 out of 10. Can't give it a 10 out of 10 because nothing's perfect in life. Sorry, gotta be frugal with my stars. But it was great. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hillel. Thank you, Shelby. And see you, kids and non-kids and Jews and non-Jews, later, alligators. It's Wednesday, so, get through that Thursday, into that Friday. Don't drink too much. Use an Uber or a friend if you need. Now I'm like your Jewish parent. Make sure you don't drink too much alcohol, okay? The rabbi would not approve. Rabbi Moshe would not like that. Okay. Bye-bye.